who was a poet, an actor now, an author, workshop leader. It's come out of a lot of experiences out of some of the world stage workshops. We're really kind of interested talking about that, as well as the Nishanti vibrations workshops as well. So that's also kind of exciting to talk about those kind of very historic writing workshops. So Derek, before we get into those workshops, your book, everything, tell us how you got started. Tell us how you got involved in the world of poetry.
So I guess typical tale. I was going through a heartbreak, and
Sorry,
like no one's ever became a poet like writing about heartbreak. But I work at a college campus, and I was walking through campus, and someone that knew me outside of there saw my face and was like, "Okay, what's wrong with you?" I'm like, "Nothing's wrong with me." And I poked my chest, like, "No, you're lying. Tell me." And something just said, "Tell her." So I told her what was going on, and she was like, "When was the last time you were actually happy?" Like, I know you pay your bills here, but like when you were young, what did you think you wanted to be? I was like, well, I kind of thought I wanted to be a writer. And she was like, I know some people you should talk to. I know a place you should go. So they directed me towards Vibrations, led by Food for Thought and Queen Sock, shout out, in Inglewood, California. And that was the very first open mic I ever walked into. And I walked in and I was terrified. I had no intention of I didn't know what I was gonna walk into. They said, you should go here just to express yourself and get some clarity.
What year was this?
That was 2014. 2014. And yeah, a lot of people think I've been like around longer than I have because I was doing a lot when I first started, but no, it was 2014. And April 2014 to be exact, because I keep track. And I always tell the story that within an hour of being there, I knew I was never leaving. And leaving not just that place, but the art form after an hour of being there. And I mean, I'm not exaggerating, I promise you. Like they in the front, they had like a storefront where they made, and they sell teas and things. And I went, and Sock was making me a cup of tea and talking to me about what was going on. And within like 45 minutes of sipping that tea and being in that room with these people expressing themselves, and I had never seen anything like it, and I was just mesmerized, and it hit me in my gut, and I knew that I had to do it. And it was every Thursday, and that Sunday they had the Stillwaters writing workshop, and I went to my very first writing workshop that Sunday, and that was how it started.
So can you compare and contrast the difference between the two workshops?
Well, okay, so at Vibrations was the open mic.
Mm.
That was the open mic and the name of the storefront. And then there was the Stillwaters writing workshop that took place at Vibrations.
Yeah.
So I would go there on Sundays and do that, and come back the following Thursday and share my new poem that I wrote in the workshop there.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit. Okay. Well, tell us a little bit. Well, let's just talk about the world stage, because the world stage is kind of like legendary for the workshops there. So tell us a little about your experience.
So literally, the world stage was the very second poetry venue I'd ever been in. Second place I ever said a poem was in the world stage. So every Wednesday you have the Anansi Writers Workshop, and you can bring in works in progress and give feedback. They give you virtues of the work and things that need improvement. And depending on who's in the audience that evening, the things that need improvement can be very colorful. When I first came around, Connie Williams was doing most of the heavy lifting as far as hosting.
Yeah.
If you had a night where you had Connie in there with, let's say, like a Peter J. Harris and a couple of other, like Marcellus, these elders in the community would really very passionately let you know what needed improvement from your work. But it was always coming from a good place. You know, sometimes it would hit you right here like a gut punch, but it was always from a good place.
Yeah.
World stage. Go ahead.
What was Connie like?
You know, you know, do not let the smooth taste fool you with Connie Williams.
Oh
Not
man,
do that.
do not let the wine, cheese, and linen pants fool you. When
Oh
it comes
man,
to Connie Williams.
you know, he might wear a shirt buttoned down to like his navel and be the smooth cat. But if he hears something that doesn't speak to the integrity, it would just be like clunk.
Yeah.
And he was
Don't let the silk shirt fool you. Connie Williams is a killer.
do not let that fool you. But I really appreciated that environment. Like, you know, the iron sharpening iron. So you got like a room full of swords taking swipes at you. But it gave me thick skin early. I know people who did a lot of writing first for poetry and, you know, they didn't start workshopping or they don't workshop. I'm not saying that's wrong, but for me, I'm glad I got the thick skin early. My suggestion, if you want to do this, you know, like for your living, I personally think workshopping is essential.
Yeah. All right. So you also mentioned Peter J. Harris. Tell us about Peter.
Peter J. Harris. I love the uncensored nature of it. Like I remember one time, and it was just something it wasn't even poetry. Like, oh yeah, probably around 2015, I actually hosted the world stage like a couple times. They let me host a couple times, and I called one of the lady poets a poetess, and he didn't like that.
Yeah.
And he was like, fuck is this, 1995? Stop that shit. He might not remember it, but he said that, and I was trying to hold it together like, oh, like in my mind, like, okay, because I was already nervous about hosting. And he just, I guess because I said poetess, like he did not like that. He let it be known immediately. And like during workshops, he was quick to tell you, oh, that's bullshit. Don't do it again. And like, not with the look of, I hope that didn't hurt your feelings. You know, I meant that nice way. Like literally, that's bullshit. And like, look back at your paper with the pen in hand as he's going through it. Because at the world stage, it's very encouraged that you bring copies of your work when you workshop, so people in the audience can see it, and pens will be out. And literally, like he would, I don't know if he meant to say it out loud. I was like, "That's crap." But all the suggestions came from a place of, first of all, a mountain of experience. Mountain of experience.
Yeah.
If you've never seen Peter J. Harris read, he's in that list of people that. Oh, sorry, let me go back. Some of people in the community, a lot of elders will think you have to memorize your work.
Yeah.
You have to do this. I'm not one of those. But he's one of the people, if you see him read from his book, you forget the book is there. It's a talent that is just not him, and like Jahan Zainabu is like they'll be reading to you and you forget that they're reading. Like you're inside the pages of the thing they're reading from. He has this way that he reads that just brings it to life. But that was one of the things. It came from a wealth of experience. Also, why, you know, at the world stage, depending on the night, you never know who was going to be there. You know, Kamal Daoud will walk in on a random night and join the fray. You know what I mean? You never know who was there at world stage because it has such a long, I believe coming up on 30 years of history being in Leimert Park.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about but you know, tell us a little about the move of from one place to the next. I mean, world stage was gonna get lost, and now it's bigger and better than ever.
When I first went to the world stage, let me see. It was on the east side of Degnan Boulevard. And I was actually there the last night at that location before it moved across the street to where it is on the west side of Degnan. I remember because Leimert Park has, a colorful cast of characters.
Yeah.
And, so the door will be open sometimes. And there was a person that came in, obviously inebriated. And I remember they got into it with someone else and it spilled outside. And I was like, oh man, it's the last night. And V. Kali, if you've never been around V. Kali, her Zen nature, she's put out some sage and we're just walking around these people arguing and it's just calm as can be. And within a few minutes it stopped. And I remember I took a picture of her hand holding the sage.
Yeah.
And I can't say it. Well, V. Kali is the current and continued queen of the world stage. I think she said she's been there over 25 years.
Yeah.
You never met a more Zen person. Like some people throw around the word, the phrase Queen Mother. She is literally Queen Mother. Across the street where it is now, it's more spacious, and if you've been in recently, it's beautiful. They remodeled it probably right before the lockdown. It's beautiful in there. And for those who don't know, like it's not, on Wednesday nights at 7:30 is the Anansi Writers Workshop, but normally before the lockdown, all throughout the week there's different events. It's a very sought after musical venue. There's been some amazing talent that comes through there. And it's different things. There's vocal workshops, drumming workshops all throughout the week. So definitely go to worldstage.com. I'm not sure what it's doing these days under these lockdown parameters, but there's so much history there.
Yeah. So in addition to kind of vibrations and the world stage, which is kind of where I know you from, I've seen you in a number of other places as well. You kind of make the rounds. I remember for many years, there was a guy named Mike the Poet who was known as the hardest working poet in Los Angeles. And then something happened. This guy named Matt Cedillo came around, and he was the hardest working poet in Los Angeles. But then, I kind of gave that up, and we're kind of just went on to do other stuff. And then so that mantle keeps getting passed down, or being not really passed down, kind of getting knocked off. So at a certain point in time, you kind of became the hardest working poet in Los Angeles. So tell us about making the rounds and how that all came about, or what that was.
Let me tell you about you first of all. So it was probably 2014. Mm-hmm. I was at flight school.
Yeah.
I didn't know who the hell you were. I'm like, who? And it was like, yeah, tonight, someone in our feature tonight, something. And I was like, and it was this unassuming guy. You had a zip up hoodie on, your hands were in your pocket. And I'm like, you got up on stage. I'm like, huh. Because, if you've been to flight school, it's very band heavy.
Yeah.
I was like, look at this kid. What is he going to do? And you exploded. And I was like, yeah. Because I had heard your name, but I hadn't met you. And I was like, that's why. And ever since then, I was like, okay, yeah, Matt Cedillo, everybody. Thank you very much. So you being the hardest working poet, yeah, you can still hang your hat on that. That was amazing. So I never forgot that night when I first met you. I went a little crazy really fast.
Yeah.
I saw you in 2014 was the first time I ever went to an open mic.
Well, before you say that, I just want to say, when I got involved, I started doing this in 2008, right? Mm-hmm. And at that time, I'm serious, Mike was known as the hardest working poet in LA for a long time, for maybe a decade. Everyone was talking about Mike Sonskin, the hardest working poet in LA, just busting his ass, just going everywhere. But then he got married, had a kid, and life happens, right? And he started, he published his book, and then started getting more the big gigs and stuff like that. And so when I started, I hit the ground running, and in 2008 to about 2000 and maybe 13ish, right, 14ish, right. So it's kind of a mantle that gets passed when you But anyways, go on to your story.
So 2014 when I started, I went from only knowing that one mic, which is Vibrations, where I started. Yeah. I'd say I went from that within probably within about 4 months of that, I was doing poetry like 5, 6 nights a week.
Yeah.
Because you know how you go to one place, you find out about another place, you find out about another place, and it keeps going like that. Like literally. But once I found out about these places, I would start to frequent them every week. And then maybe the next month I'll switch out and go to 5 or 6 more places every week for these mics. So I got photographed a lot. And my name was thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
And so I had to remind people like, yo, I've only been doing this like a hot second. Like, no, but you were here, you were there, you couldn't. And then also, as far as like name out there, you know, there's I am Derek D. Brown. There's also Derek C. Brown. Shouts out to you. You're awesome. You're my boy. So people would always say, oh, yeah, Derek, you did this. I was like, no, I've never been there. I'm like, why do they keep saying I've been these places? But it was actually Derek C. Brown. So my name got passed around a lot of circles. And actually, I think it actually helped me. It was like his name became part of my PR team. People just started associating me with things because his name was the same as mine.
You know who's on at noon?
Who's that?
Derek C. Brown. How could I not? How could I not?
Okay.
Don't hate me.
So for the listeners, I am Derek D. Brown. He is Derek C. Brown. You know? But his name helped boost my name. But okay, so hit the ground running hard, and that really good. I don't know how it was when you started, that really good feeling of I can't not go do this because I feel like I'll miss a piece of at that time. I mean, definitely it was a healing process, and I felt like I'm getting this new education, and I really felt like I had to be places all the time, and it was a beautiful time. And so, April 2014. I started doing poetry at the world stage. I met Hiram Sims. If you don't know, Hiram Sims is a creative writing teacher in our community and a workshop leader and a bunch of other things. But he's also the director of the Community Literature Initiative. The Community Literature Initiative. That is a program. It's a publishing program, a 10-month program that you can go into with your manuscript, and they'll get chiseled and shaved and conditioned. And at the end of 10 months, you're ready to be published with one of the LA small presses. I went in that program in September of 2014. So I started doing poetry in April of 2014. I hopped in that in September. Looking back, that was probably insane, but it gave me the life I have. So I can't really say how I should have done that differently. Some people were like, there's no way you should have put a book out or even tried to do it when you do. And I can respect that opinion because, you know, I hadn't put the work in, quote unquote, at the time. I don't know. I met Hiram. I felt like, yes, I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. I might as well start now. So I jumped in CLI. And at the end of CLI, you do what's known as the author draft. And it's at USC. And you get about 10 or so small presses in Los Angeles, and you pretty much put on a pitch campaign for them, and then they'll pick who they want to, you know, publish from that. So, food for thought, and Clean Socks were there representing Stillwater's Press, and they chose me. And then I have a book. Well, the book came out in 2017. So I can't believe it's been 3 years, but yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Food for Thought and Socks.
Okay,
and kind of like, you know.
So I got to go back and talk about like Vibrations. Vibration was so unique because it wasn't just the open. It was more than, it had so many hats. It was the open mic. It was the writer's workshop. It was a retail establishment. It was like a therapy office. You can go there and get everything from like, you can go there and get like African artwork. You can get clothing. They had this thing called the Truthbrary, where they had over like 4,000 books. Not the library where they lied to you, but the Truthbrary where these books represent the truth. of the community.
Yeah, I like
And
that.
right, the Shrewsbury. Uh, those two, wow, it's crazy how they have actually never left my side since I started poetry. They haven't
Mm.
left. So first mic I ever went to, first people I ever did a workshop with, and they actually are the publishers of my book. And since then we've gone on, we're currently working on business ventures together. It's a lot. They didn't call themselves like the hosts or the purveyors of the space. They call themselves the gardeners of that space because they really just they water the seeds of the community. They've taught me a whole lot that had nothing to do with poetry, and they are very nurturing, and there are people that you can go to and talk to, and they can guide you in a way that other people can't guide you. They listen differently. That's their superpower. They listen differently. Kwame always says that. Shouts out to him. And they're very solution oriented.
Yeah. So how do
They've
you meet?
literally not left my side since I started to this day.
So can you expand a little bit on that? What do you mean they listen differently?
Well, okay. Imagine. Okay, I think a lot of poets, they tend to be broken in some ways. I think we're all broken in some ways, but especially poets. So the idea of them being more whole people, you need some whole people in your life. It's one thing if we can get together to talk about poems, that's fine, but people who actually, like Food for Thought says, like, how many people do you talk to? They say when you say, "Hey, how you doing?" They actually stop to hear the answer. Think about that. Not everyone that will ask you how you're doing, they're not asking to really hear your answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, they do. Well, they do counseling and a bunch of other, life coaching and things too. So that's just wound in them. And besides being my publisher, we like I said, we're friends, we're colleagues, and a bunch of other things now. But it just
Yeah.
grew over the years.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing. Earlier you mentioned, so I want to talk about some of these venues. Earlier you mentioned Flight School. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience there at Flight School with some of the people that were
Oh wow, flight school. I'm not gonna lie, I was always intimidated. Also, it was one of the first places I went to in that first probably 6 months of me doing poetry, and it was really band heavy, and I was so terrified of it. Like a lot of times, I felt like if I never had anyone say anything to me there, but I would go up on stage, and I was new and I had like paper in my hand, I was shaking, and the band would start playing, I would be like, and it was like womp womp. They didn't say that, but I felt like they were saying like, "Oh man, he doesn't want to rock with the band." And it wasn't that I didn't enjoy it; I was terrified. I was new, and I kind of always I felt like more of a fly on the wall at flight school.
yeah.
Uh, I was always mesmerized by how O. Smith would freestyle a whole song. I thought that was amazing. I still do. Like he would freestyle an entire song,
Yeah.
multiple songs in a night, just off the top. And I honestly had never seen someone do that until then.
Yeah. Tell us about O. Smith.
Yeah, he was always a positive cat, and I didn't know his whole backstory, but I felt like he's one that was kind of like music was in his blood. I don't even know what his background is, but I just felt like music was in his blood because, like, it was always a sway in his talk. It was always like even when he was just introducing people, you felt like it was an intro to a song.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm talking about?
It was, yeah. It was always like, and this one is dedicated to, like, like, and we've all felt this in life, and we all, very, like he's always like kind of clearing the stage, and yeah, it
And
was a
it
great host.
happened a lot.
Yeah,
And so I don't know if I met Mark Miner there or at Vibrations, but he was heavy in both places.
yeah,
And probably one of the most talented musicians I had heard. I remember telling him then, like, where's your album? Why can't I get your album? And, shouts out to Mark Miner, dude. My God.
yeah. Mark was is. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen him in years, but Mark, man, that was one of those talents. I remember one night. It was kind of funny though, because like the way Flight School was set up is that it was kind of like, yeah, Mark, you should have an album and you should go across the world and be like this world class talent that everyone knows about. But it created its own environment, so it was like you were famous at Flight School. You know what I mean? Like it didn't matter like
Yeah.
what happened outside. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of venues do that. They have like this kind of, I call it venue hypnosis, and it's not always a good thing. Where you think because you're big at a venue, you think you're like huge in the world. So that's not always good. But there was a sense at Flight School that to be somebody at Flight School meant something, right? And like because I remember I remember this dude from Epic Rap Battles of History. You know that YouTube channel? So he came in. This guy Epic Lloyd, and nobody there knew who he was because nobody gives a fuck, right? No, I mean nobody. I mean, not too many people at that venue really gave a fuck, right? But I knew who he was. And I'm like, oh shit! And so I'm sitting there talking to him, and I'm just having like this conversation, let's just shoot the shit, like whatever, like yeah, man, like I really love your work and blah blah blah, like that's just hilarious, da 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 da. And then all of a sudden, O Smith like is gonna call me up, right? Because I wasn't featuring, I was just on the open mic, and he's all like, this man is a legend, one of the world's greatest poets. He's just come back from blah, 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 just touring the world. I think he just came back from Canada. Oh, and he's like, match the deal. I'm like, all right, brother, I'll talk to you in a second. Like, like this guy, Epic Lloyd, is famous in the world, right? But like, nobody knows who you are here. I'm famous in this room. It's a total difference. So, I mean, like, but yeah, can you talk to the venues and like how these venues are like a world unto themselves?
Another thing that also intimidated me there was the legend of Natural High, which I
Yeah.
wasn't around for. So I always felt like I was coming in like the middle of a story. Because like at least if anybody was Natural High fam, he would say it when he would announce them.
Yeah.
Coming up next, this one brother, he's Natural High fam. You already know this is. And I'm like, but I don't already know. And it was, I didn't come around till after that. So between the band and the legend of Natural High, I always felt a little bit intimidated, man. I wasn't new, but it was an energetic. I mean, you got the band and you got O Smith giving these melodic intros, yeah. And also, what I thought was hilarious, watching the ladies go in. They had this Ethiopian honey wine that people were crazy about.
Ethiopian anyway, yeah.
I would see, and like people would literally, literally, if they run out, it would be a problem.
Yeah.
It would be a problem. I was like, dude, what is in this wine? Why are these ladies going? It was always fun to watch, though.
Yeah. Did you ever see when Aaron would come out with the instrument? The restaurant owner?
I talked to him a couple times. Wait, what instrument was it?
I don't. It was a stringed instrument, but it was like a box. It was like it came from. It was he's from I don't know. I don't know what it's called. I guess like a miniature harp. I don't. It wasn't Ethiopian. It was Eritrean specifically. So I don't know. I don't know what the name of the instrument was, but it was pretty cool. I mean, it was pretty like it was. And then they opened up the hookah lounge in the back where people abused that. So
Yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna lie, it was a little because it was long winded too. Like it would frustrate me sometimes because and I know a lot of hosts do this. They kind of call the list as they feel it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but when I was brand new, I got everywhere on time or early. When I was new, so like doors open at 9, I'd be there like 9:05, and then if I got called, it'd be like 11:45, 12. And I was like, dude, and I would be in the back like, because when you're new, you're nervous. I don't know if you had that, but I had the nerves bad, and I was like, I just want to get up here and say this, and because
Yeah.
then it wasn't so much about being good. It was like, yo, I'm still getting used to saying words in front of people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's I don't know. It was when I first got started, for me, it was just kind of like I felt like I had a lot of time to make up. You know what I mean? Like, cause I got started when I was like 26. So like, I felt I wasn't that's not old or anything like that, but it was like I'm looking like old for life, but like in many ways, I felt like I had this art inside me since I was a kid, and like there was no outlet. And so then like once I got started, I hit the ground running. You know what I mean? I hit the ground running. So that's how it was for me. So when I had those words and just getting started, I just had to do it.
Got that. Good
Yeah.
old flight.
So tell us about your book. Tell us about this book that you produced and yeah.
So let me see. The book is called Articulate Scars, and it was produced by Still Waters Press. As I said, I went through the Community Literature Initiative, so shouts out to Hiram Sims and everybody else at Community Literature Initiative. The book is called Articulate Scars. I'd say my favorite thing about the book is the table of contents because it's divided into the steps of a scar. Like the first section of poems is called punctures, like the onset of the injury. And the poems that I put in there kind of address that. Then it goes into the next chapter, which is open wounds. Like imagine if you have an injury and you don't dress it. You're supposed to
Yeah.
disinfect it, dress it, but if it doesn't, you have this open wound that's festering. So these things that are still lingering. Then the next chapter is sutures. So come in, it gets stitched up, and you're starting to close that. And then the last chapter is called scabs. And scabs is interesting because it has sort of an ugly connotation, but you have to think about what's under the scab. The scab is just a covering. But if a scab falls off naturally, underneath is new skin that's healing itself. And so the book is comprised. There's a lot of heartache in there, But in the time that I wrote the book, other topics got involved, but not just heartache. There's some political stuff in there. There's some power to my people things in there. A lot of male reflection in there,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's probably the strongest thing. Like people have labeled me as with male vulnerability. At first, I was like, but I'm like, you know what? Reading my work is like, yeah, there's a lot of that in
Yeah. What does that mean for you?
there. Male vulnerability.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, especially in black and brown communities, uh, there's machismo. There's this poke your chest out mentality and suck it up. And we do so much sucking it up, forgive the vernacular, but it has to go somewhere. That energy, it doesn't just dissipate. It stays in you and it comes out most time in the most negative fashion. And there is no forward motion in sucking it up and just dealing with it. There's no forward motion there. If there's no release, you just have pressure and usually an explosion. We have a lot of that in our community. And especially when it comes to matters that are hard that we just don't talk about.
Yeah. Can you read us a poem from the collection?
Absolutely. So Okay, this one. It's called High Hopes. In this time of heartbreaks, hate crimes, and hashtags, all I have to cling to for the future is hope. Hope that the name on my unborn son's birth certificate does not read Dead Man Walking, that his first steps won't be to take his place in a lineup of usual suspects, and that his first words won't be, "Stop, I can't breathe." Hope lost is a dream deferred, a message yelled at me from the pulpit in all of its Sunday morning glory. But how can I hope to dream when hope itself has become a four-letter word that's closer to hide than it is to seek, that's closer to sick than it is to cure, and closer to fall than it is to rise? But still, I have hope. Hope that my convenience store run for candy in a bag will conveniently give the LAPD probable cause to put my son's lifeless body into a bag with his toes tagged. Hope. Hope that he gets called to the stage for diplomas and degrees, not called up to the judge begging mercy for a plea. Hope. Hope that wearing a hoodie outside of his hood won't make him a target of white men in hoods. Hope. Hope he stands tall for all he believes in and exceeds all expectations. Not be laid out flat as I'm called to ID his bullet-riddled body down at the police station. But then again, how can I possibly have hope when the very definition is a unicorn behind an electrified fence that keeps buzzing louder and more insistent with the current of hatred? But this madness has to stop eventually. They have to learn to respect us as equals eventually. They have to realize that these public executions are crimes against the fabric of our humanity. Eventually they do. Eventually. At least I hope.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Hey, so can you tell us where we can find out where we can find this book and and what's up with the tell us where we can find this book.
Okay, so there is www.derekdbrown.com. Now, I'm gonna tell you right now, so a lot of the information on there hasn't been updated. That's my fault, but the information for the book and the purchase still works there. So derekdbrown.com, or of course you can go to Amazon and get it there. And it's Articulate Scars is the name of the book. Articulate Scars, Comfortable Silence and Reluctant Tears is the full title. So at derekdbrown.com or on Amazon.
All right, cool. And tell us a little bit more about the press that it's published by.
Okay, so it's published by Stillwater's Publishing, and that's ran by O'Shea and Melanie Luja, known artistically as Food for Thought and Queen Socks. And they publish a couple of different books each year. And you can go to stillwaters.com and follow up with them.
All right. And I know the Stillwaters, they published a few different poets in Los Angeles, really good collection. So definitely everyone check that out. We'll post the links below. And I thank you so much, Derek. This has been a really
thank you. This has been amazing.
Yeah. So we'll talk soon.
Yes.